tiring, and we always add this in there, so no problem.
Good morning. Welcome to episode 5 of the You Are Beautiful podcast. I am Jordan. This is Mo.
And I'm Kiana.
Kiana, thank you for joining us. And I really want to say thank you because this is a Sunday. It's 4th of July weekend. There's plenty of things you could be doing. So I really, really appreciate the fact that you're here. And I also really, this is my thing. And I really admire the fact that you're not, and I guess I'm judging people, but that's not my goal when I say this, that you're not up hungover or drinking like this. Like I'm trying to go to in a different direction and really promote positivity and success and discipline. And it's one of the most badass things that I kept telling people was that she's taking time out on her Sunday that she could be doing anything to come over here. And I really, really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. It's really not a problem. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So there's no set way of answering this. I just want people to see your personality, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about why I brought you here, so on and so forth. So the first question is, who are you?
Okay, I'm Kiana.
I'm just going to move this a little closer.
Oh, yeah, we just got to keep it a little like Joe Rogan style.
Broken style. I've been in the fitness industry for about 10 years. I started out as a yoga instructor, actually, sort of more out of personal interest than anything else. Quickly realized I don't really like teaching yoga. So I started to get more interested in like the scientific concepts of training and nutrition and all that good stuff. So I ventured in toward the personal training world round about 2015. Quickly after that, I began training clients both in person and online. And I started to get into the world of competitive bodybuilding. So I did my first bikini competition in 2016 and have been competing since then. And ever since I started in kind of the personal training world in 2015, even the yoga world, every single day I'm just excited and anxious and interested to dive more and more into the world of strength and muscle development and nutrition and how it all impacts people on a cellular level, on an emotional level, on a physical level, and all of the above. And so I've in a sense and in a way, I've kind of dedicated my life to that. Not to say that I don't have a life outside of fitness, but that is like my passion. That's been my main interest for the past 10 years. And it's been an exciting journey just seeing where that takes me.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome. Now, a quick question on what you just said, and that's amazing. That's more than what I could hope for, and I can work with that. So, did you get into your competitions first, and then with the knowledge you gained from there, and then you started going towards the personal training and the coaching route, or were you already into it, and then realize that going into a competition will help you understand this fitness and muscle building stuff more?
So I actually, when I first started as like a trainer in the fitness industry, I knew about the competing world, but I was not interested in the least. It was not for me. It was not something I wanted to do. I did not want to diet that extremely. I did not even want to be that lean. But the first private personal training gym that I started training out of was big on natural competitive bodybuilding. The owner of that gym back in Oregon, Aaron Orton, is a hugely successful natural bodybuilder, and he sort of took me under his wing and coaxed me toward the stage. There were so many people around me in a positive way that were competing and kind of influenced my decision to just give it a shot and challenge myself. I always like a good challenge. I always like to expand my horizons and see what I'm capable of, so that that kind of provided a platform for me to do that. And then I did it once, and I was like, I'm never doing that again. And the next year rolled around, and I was like, kind of want to do it again. And that kind of happened every single year since then.
Nice.
Because it was just like I said, a great platform for me to challenge myself and for me to see how far I could continue coming every year and see how much I could expand my knowledge around body composition and transformation and all the freaking cool changes that we can make physically to our body just by manipulating the way that we treat ourselves. That was so interesting to me.
I love that.
So taking your body to like, and I don't say extreme to the in a negative way, but like that dialed in.
Yeah.
And you have to do things faster because you're competing. What's the most amount of muscle you can make? What's the most amount of tightness and manipulation? And also doing that in a healthy way with your joints and all that stuff, because it's easy to put on about a bunch of muscle really fast, well, here and there, and to a certain extent, and just blast your joints and not be able to do it long term.
Yeah, so it's easy to get really caught up in the short term game, and that happens to a lot of people in any extreme sport, you know, and bodybuilding is an extreme sport. So yeah, it can be a challenge to look at the long game, and it's probably not something that anyone ever starts out with, like a good long-term outlook. But if it's a world that you're really interested in and you continue competing year after year, I think the longevity mindset is something that's developed over time, because it has to be.
So, and could you please, sorry, I don't need to, I'm bad at this, but I want to acknowledge what you just said, and I completely understand that. It's like, it's kind of testing yourself on mental toughness more than, it's like fighting.
For sure.
Like, I mean, it's not about like just who can put in more work and all that stuff. Everyone's trying really hard, but it's that every single meal, every single workout, when you're in pain and when you want to go out and like drink a bunch of garbage, eat a bunch of garbage, that, I mean, changes you and like really dials you in, makes you a more disciplined person.
Absolutely.
So really to touch up on that first part that you said, natural, and we don't have to go into too many details on it, but just some people who don't understand, when you specifically said he did natural bodybuilding, what does that mean, and why were you drawn towards that specifically?
Yeah, so for those of you who aren't familiar with the bodybuilding world, it's actually, steroids are very common. More people than not do take steroids, even bikini girls, especially nowadays.
Wow.
And so the owner of this gym that I worked at, Genuine Fitness, he is into the natural bodybuilding world, meaning that like he competes at those same shows as the other big bodybuilders, but he is a lifetime natural, never touched steroids, and he promotes the same thing for all of his athletes. I don't even think he will take on athletes who are on steroids, and is very passionate about that, because especially as a male bodybuilder, it's pretty uncommon to be a lifetime natural. And so he competes in natural federations. He actually has his own natural show now every year in the summer in Oregon, the Cecile Phillips Classic. But he was, just very passionate about the natural world, which was great, because that I kind of started in competing under his wing. And so steroids were never even a question for me. It was never like, oh, should I do that? Or, oh, this person recommended that. Or, oh, this is available. It was just like, natural is the way we do it. And that's just bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So when you said that you didn't think you were going to compete, and then you ended up doing it, and then you actually ended up doing it again. So do you mind going over the reasons that was making you not like want to do it long term or do it to begin with?
Yeah, initially I was just like, this is really extreme. I don't need to do this. I just want to be fit. I want to be healthy. And then, like I said, I really wanted to give myself a challenge eventually. And then after I did, like towards the tail end of my first prep, I was like, okay, I've done a prep. I don't really feel like I need to do this again, because it is an extreme. I was like, I didn't like, obviously dieting that extremely isn't super fun, and your mind starts to play tricks on you and what you look like. And I was like, I don't really want to do this again. But then you get on stage and you get such a rush and you're with all your friends. And then I ended up winning my first 3 shows, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And then, you get into the off season and you kind of forget how you felt when you were dieting and you were low calorie and you had all those not so fun parts of competing. And then as I've gotten more and more educated and essentially better at competing over time, it's become a more fun and less torturous process, because it's more methodical, and it's more like, okay, I'm doing this for a purpose. I'm doing this for a reason. I'm having fun learning how to manipulate things to make myself feel and look my best, even on prep, et cetera, et cetera.
So we're going in a good direction here. So this is my understanding of taking all of these things into consideration, and please, I'm sure you have no problem doing that, but correct me if I'm wrong. So you understand that competition at any level is going to be unhealthy for the body. You're going to push your body to unhealthy extreme limits, and you're just doing the best you can to make sure that it doesn't have a long-term detrimental impact on your body. That's why you were like kind of sort of shying away from it and not doing like 2 or 3 competitions a year. And then you add steroids on top of it in actual bodybuilding like there are only a few natural leagues. Most of it involves the use of steroids. So that those pictures that most I don't want to say most women's, but I've been in training people for about 10 years, and when people just first start that picture that they see on stage, or even if you're not on stage, a lot of those people who are really, really dialed in, paper thin skin, and very extremely low body fat, that becomes kind of the end goal.
Correct.
And it's unhealthy, and you actually kind of explained it yourself. And then not only it's unhealthy, and now you add steroids on top of it. So when you take clients, like, is that the goal? Are you pushing them towards that, or you're trying to find a more happier, sustainable medium?
So it really depends on the client, because it's important to know that if you're going to compete, it is an extreme, and it's not like, I get a lot of clients actually that will come to me and they'll be like, I don't really want to do a show. I just want to look like a competitor, and so I want to train for that. And I have to stop them in their tracks right there and say, we're not going to. They're like, I want to kind of do a prep but not actually get on stage. And I'm like, yeah, we're not going to do that, because that's not healthy. That's not a good goal for life, just to walk around like that. So I try to steer them in the direction, like, if that kind of shape is their goal, I understand what they're saying. Like, girls typically, they want the rounded glutes, they want the nice shoulders, they want the hourglass shape. So that's definitely something we can achieve. It's just not getting to the same levels of extreme leanness and sometimes even extreme muscularity, and kind of talking them through, helping them realize that that's not a sustainable goal, and that even high-level competitors don't look like that most of the time. They look like that for a period of maybe a week when they're peaking. And so kind of trying to talk them into a realistic gauge of what their goals really should be, without, taking away whatever direction they want to go in. That's kind of a main goal. And then if I do have someone who wants to carry through with a prep, I try to do it in a way that is relatively sustainable, in the sense that we're incorporating good habits. We're not getting too obsessive over food, even though that's part of the territory. But trying to help them develop healthy habits, like eating a lot of whole foods, prioritizing, protein, vegetables, things like that I would have clients do even off prep. And then also having them realize that, like, we're getting to these extreme levels of leanness that you're not going to be able to maintain after your show. And I want you to think about after your show and how you're going to feel, and what we're the kind of reverse dieting phase and the post-prep prep. I want you to be thinking about that during the tail end of your prep too, because it's so easy to get so caught up in just what's going to happen when you step on stage that people they don't even think about what's going to happen after prep. And then the post-prep period comes, and there's this period called post-prep blues, where, like, you don't have anything you're working towards anymore, so you feel kind of depressed or unmotivated, and then you're not as lean. You start to see yourself get softer. That's really unmotivating as well. So people either completely fall off the fitness train, or they develop this really unhealthy, like, cycle of binging and restricting, or excessive exercise, or trying to stay competition lean year round. So it's more of like a mindset that I try to steer my clients away from and walk my clients out of, coming in and out of prep, just so that they have someone else who's experienced in the fitness industry telling them, like, hey, it's okay to not be this lean. It's okay to not always have this goal for yourself. It's okay to not always train this hard or diet this hard. This is just life, and let's kind of work back towards a sustainable level of fitness now.
That is awesome.
really like
is
that.
awesome. Go ahead if you want to jump in before I take
I
over.
just really love that you're mentally preparing them for that, because it's kind of like what you were saying, the post, what did you call it?
The post-competition blues. Yeah,
Post-competition blues. Like, I'm relating it. My sister just got married. So
Yes.
I think about, like, there's all this, like, planning and preparation, and it's, like, such a focus in your life. And then suddenly, like, that's missing.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a hole, like, you know, and how do you fill that? And do you find your clients, like, is that happening often? What are their mental blocks? Like, how do you talk them through this?
Yeah, so this is, I think I call it like post-show depression. It's kind of similar to like postpartum depression. Like you
Yeah.
said, there's like this big part of their life that's missing now. And I'd say it happens to more competitors than it doesn't happen to. And it's something that nobody really talks about, unfortunately, which sucks because then it happens to people and they feel like there's something wrong with them. But what I try to really talk my clients through is like, hey, you did this awesome thing. You can still have fitness be a big part of your life, and it can still be exciting, and we can still set other goals for you. Like a lot of times coming out of a show, I'll have clients now set other goals, like maybe they want to do a photo shoot where they're working towards a more like sustainable level of like lean physique, or maybe they want to do a powerlifting competition where now we switch directions to trying to get as strong as possible. So trying to have a different goal to focus on in the short term, and then also in the long term, say, okay, what of these habits during prep can we continue to nurture in a balanced way within your everyday life, so that we're not just like completely stopping,
Right.
You know,
and getting out of that pattern.
Yeah, it's not just stop or go. So developing other goals is really, really helpful. Also developing community around that and helping them realize that like this is something everyone goes through, similar to like postpartum depression. You know, when women know that there's other women that go through this as well, and they can build that community. And this goes for men too. I see it happen with men as well that are competing. But just knowing there's other competitors and other people that also experience this. And if they are someone who wants to do year in and year out shows, then maybe have them start to focus on, okay, now we're going into like an improvement season where we take our calories up a little bit higher. There's more of an inclination to build some muscle, build some shape. We're not so focused on just being the leanest version of yourself that you can be. So really focusing on other goals, giving them context and giving them support, and helping them realize like you don't always have to be show lean, and you can still have other fitness goals that you're working towards.
So I really love that you talk about community, and I love that you also were talking about a mentor that you had. Was that somebody that you just like felt connected to? Did you like search them out? It just kind of organically like happened, or?
Yeah, so like the first kind of mentor that I had into my shows, I would call him my coach, but he was kind of he was a little bit of a more hands-off coach. Like he didn't give me an exact program to follow. And I think it was partially because I was a trainer and he wanted me to like test my ability. I was a trainer under him at his gym. But I seeked out his gym because I was looking for a gym that I could train clients out of that was really centered around evidence-based bodybuilding or physique transformations, because I wasn't interested in bodybuilding at that time. And he really prides himself in his gym on being evidence-based, not following, you know, typical fads just because they're fads, you know, looking at the research behind things. He's very educated, has, you know, a degree in kinesiology and all those things. So I was looking for not just like a meathead bodybuilding gym, even though bodybuilding meatheads come with the territory.
Right.
But yeah, something that was a little more evidence-based was like right up my alley, because that was what I was wanting to do. So I kind of sought his gym out, and then kind of he interviewed me and was like, yeah, like I want you to work here. And I was like, wow, really? Okay. Now what? And so then I'd say we were kind of drawn to each other in that sense. And then there was a big community around that evidence-based natural bodybuilding, which I loved. So.
Yeah, so you just fell right into that and found like your little tribe.
Exactly.
I love that.
I was very lucky in that way.
That's great. But you also took the time to do your research and find where you wanted to be.
Right.
And I think that's huge as well. Instead of just falling into something that just, you know, you stumble upon.
Right. Yeah, I pushed myself definitely to step outside of my comfort zone, because I would say when I started training there, I didn't feel ready, but I don't think you ever really feel ready to make any big steps in your life, and you got to just step into it anyways.
Yeah, just kind of like take the leap, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I wanna touch up on real quick. Sorry, did I interrupt you guys?
No.
No.
worries. um, this point that you made that the bodybuilders, whether they're natural or not, when you see those contrast prep pictures and stuff, or when they're really dialed in for a photo shoot, they don't look like that year round
Correct.
because you have to be really, really lean, restricted, maybe, and training methodologies differ. So you can overtrain and take a bunch of steroids, or not without steroids. You can just force your body to get dialed in by doing 5, 6, 7 workouts a week, cardio on top of it, and being in a calorie deficit just so you look like that for one day. But long term, if you do that, you could potentially die and have a lot of health problems. Or just to get really stacked. You said like even some bikini competitors are on steroids. More people are on them than not. And if they continue to use those steroids that they are using to look that way, they will potentially die. So people who don't know this, and this is awesome that you're talking about this, and males and females who make that the end goal and they think that you're going to look like this year round, it's going to be detrimental to their health. Now, one of the things that I use to, I mean, that's one marker and there's others too, but this thing that really helps me find out if a trainer, whether on steroids or not, actually knows what they're doing is they have a dialed in healthy physique year round. So I think I've been working with you for about a year and a half, 2 years now, and you're always in shape. There's no point where you're soft and flabby, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then you're like tight a few months later. What that shows is consistency, because it's really easy to hop on a bunch of steroids or do an extreme diet that makes you look like a certain way for a few months, but that's not sustainable, and you can drop that down. So a client who's trying to start a fitness program, they should probably approach somebody who's like year round, something that's sustainable, that you can be healthy. So like, for example, like I was doing some stuff 10 years ago, naturally, no steroids, doing a bunch of cardio, overtraining, and all I focused was to get some abs. Right? And I looked lean-ish, but like my metabolism was so slow that I would have one cheat meal, have a couple of beers, and gain 5 pounds of fat and look soft. Testosterone levels were so low that I was experiencing erectile dysfunction. It was as low as a 12-year-old boy, and I had to start all that back up. So people don't realize that that picture that they're seeing, it's not 100% sustainable. You want to take a more of a healthier approach to things. Now that next thing I'm going to go into, like, competitions are great. They're awesome, teach you discipline and all that stuff. But cutting down to that extreme is actually long term is going to push you back on your goals. Like, for example, if somebody does not want to compete, a client, if a client comes up to you and let's say they're like 20-25% body fat, or they want to make a change, they want more muscle, less fat, they want to get toned, right? And let's say they're going to commit, I don't think anybody should get into a mindset of like, hey, I'm going to change my body this way and I'm going to stop. No, you just want to continue this for the rest of your life. So let's say they're going to put in 4 years with you, right? Of training, doing everything you ask them to do. So the best case scenario, would it be them just doing their training for 4 years, or do a competition here and there over those 4 years? Adding those competition to those 4 years, and I know it's hard to pick absolutes, but in best case scenarios, would adding those competitions, bikini competitions over those 4 years, will they enhance their progress or will they limit it?
Well, are we talking physical progress, or are we talking just general well-being?
So I'm saying from point A to point B, right? So bigger, stronger, faster, more aesthetics, healthier, better metabolism, better testosterone levels, lower estrogen levels, AGH levels, joint health, everything, overall health and longevity and maximizing goals. Would you add competitions over those 4 years, or would you take them out?
That's a really interesting question. So, I would say, like we've touched on, getting competition level lean isn't necessarily quote unquote healthy. I would say the benefit to adding competitions would be one of the things I love about training competitors is how dedicated they are to their goal. So they will
Sorry,
essentially.
may I interrupt you for
Yeah.
1 second? So let's add this thing and say the dedication and discipline does not change.
Okay.
You ask them to jump, they say how high.
Okay.
Everything is exactly the same. So I just want to compare the two
No, for sure.
variables, right? Everything's constant.
Gotcha.
They're not having cheat meals during competition. They're not having cheat meals. Everything is exactly the same.
Okay.
It's one with competition, one without competition.
I would say probably no competitions because first of all, we're never going to get to the place mentally where you always want to be super shredded, and that in and of itself can run you to the ground, because if you always want to be super lean, your hormonal profile is never going to be optimal, which is not great for optimizing body composition. It's not great in the long term for either losing body fat or gaining muscle. And it's also just going to be something that you can build on more sustainably. So if you're doing these competitions, then you have to have periods where, your training loads are a little lighter because your joints are a little more fragile because you're so lean. You're going to have periods where you probably gain more weight than is necessary post-competition because your metabolism's in a really fragile place, and then you go and overeat, which is pretty normal after a show, and then you gain more weight than is necessary. So we're probably in the long term, if consistency and dedication and the hard work put into training in the gym, and even the dedication to your nutrition, though not as extreme when you're not competing, if all of that stays the same, we're probably going to see better results in the long term without competitions.
Very interesting.
That is awesome. This is and this is thank you so much for explaining that, because like you look like somebody that a lot of my clients, like they want an after results to look like. You're lean, you're muscular, you're healthy year round, and you're strong, and your face is okay too. So when somebody like Jordan comes in to me, and she's going to be with me for almost a year, my approach is that let's not worry about being a little bit soft for a few months. Let's not focus on just getting that body fat down, because if the goal is to go from her to where you are, you're better off being a little soft and have a sustainable thing, because over 4 or 5 years of training, because like how long did it take you to get to where you are?
Well, I've been training in the gym for at least 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah. And obviously the first couple years are different than every next couple years. But I will definitely say that muscle is harder to put on than it is to lose body fat. And putting on muscle is something that's going to get perpetually harder and harder for the longer you try to stay in a calorie deficit. And then also it's important, especially for women, to realize that a little bit of body fat is healthy and normal. There's nothing wrong with not having a chiseled six-pack year-round. And for most people who don't have a naturally pretty low body fat set point, having like visible chiseled abs year-round is not a very good, healthy, or sustainable goal. So being comfortable in your skin and in your body without just being the leanest version of yourself, recognizing other areas of progress is really, really important on any fitness journey.
And that's awesome, that other areas of progress that you pointed out. That in 6 months to a year, the only thing you've changed in your life is your physique. I think you failed.
Yeah,
Are you good brother, husband, father? Did your bank account, your credit score go up? Do you have better relationships? If you sacrificed everything for that one goal, I think it's a fail. And second, what I want to touch up on is like what you said, sustainable and a year-round physique. So you walk around year-round. You don't worry about adding on too much body fat and all that stuff. Like me, personally, I don't count my calories anymore. Now, if I want to get dialed in and this and that, and if I'm really pushing to get stronger, I will. But for the most part, I don't have to worry about a few hundred calories here and there. So you can seriously, if you only focus on body fat, you will crash your metabolism, joints, and all that stuff, and you're going to look okay-ish in the first 3 months for a little bit. But now that's not sustainable. And if you start eating like a normal person and to the point where you're not starving, your body blows back up again. But if you just be consistent and focus on building muscle, getting stronger, having a better diet, in the span of 3-4 years, by the time that body fat is down, your testosterone levels are elevated, your metabolism is faster. So you're a bigger, stronger, faster version of yourself. And just because you sacrificed not being completely lean for the first maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, now we will end up where you are, where you get have a higher metabolism and you don't have to worry about getting fat for the rest of your life. But because like the way I look at it, for somebody like you and me, it would be physically almost impossible to eat the amount of food to just start gaining that body fat. Like it would be obnoxious.
It would be, but that's because I've come from a place where I've developed good eating habits, you know. So I eat a lot of whole foods, I eat a lot of fruits, I eat a lot of vegetables. I'm not going out to Jack in the Box every single meal. So I've developed habits that are essentially just perpetually keep me on a little bit of the lower calorie end than the average American. And so it doesn't feel like I have to starve myself. If I was going out, you know, and like you said, drinking every weekend, slamming fast food every meal, you know, having enchiladas covered in cheese and burritos like 3 times a week, then it would be a lot easier to put on that body fat. But those just aren't my habits. That's just not my default, because I've taken the time over the years to focus on developing good habits and not always just focus on dieting in the sense that like, oh, I just need to eat whatever's lowest in calories, because then that backfires, and then you want to turn around and eat whatever's highest in calories as soon as you're done focusing on the low calorie phase. Whereas if you focus more on healthy and sustainable habits, then you come to a place where those habits, that's just what you do. You know, it's not dieting or not dieting. This is just your quote unquote lifestyle.
In relation to that, I was looking at your Instagram, and I love how motivational everything is. And there was this really cute video where you're dancing around, having fun, and you're saying like fitness should improve your life. It shouldn't take away from it. And I see too that you will travel a lot, and you'll find like places to work out might not be the right setup for you. Like when you're in these situations where you're exposed to, I don't know, like temptations of food, or you're out doing something fun with your friends, how do you stay on track? And do you ever have a challenge where other people are like judging you for what you're doing or anything like that?
Absolutely. So I do like to travel a lot. I spent this past winter living 5 months in Mexico. I like to, you know, have experiences and live my life and go all around. So something I always make sure to do is try to find a gym wherever I'm going. Like you said, maybe it's not always my favorite gym, but something that always gets the job done, you know, and you can do very, very well maintaining even without optimizing your setup or specifically how you want things. You know, sometimes you take a step back and you just focus on maintenance and you focus on the lifestyle habits that are going to kind of keep you healthy. And like I said, those are just like training and eating well. Those are just things I do now. It's not like something that I have to put a bunch of extra effort in, because I've spent years developing the habits of daily life that incorporate training and good nutrition. There's definitely times where people will question or judge, like, oh, you're not, like, why aren't you going to eat this right now? Or you're going to leave because you want to get up and train at the gym in the morning. But at the end of the day, you have to think about, okay, this is my life, you know, this is not their life. What is going to make me the happiest in the long term? What is going to make me feel the best? Because they're not the ones that are living with those repercussions, and they're not the ones that are living with how are you going to feel physically if you eat like crap, you know, how are you going to feel tomorrow midday if you get up and know you didn't move your body and you didn't stay, I don't want to say on track, because there's nothing to be on track for. This is just life. But if you don't continue taking care of yourself, you know, they're not living in your body. So you have to do whatever you feel like is best for you. And sometimes that means going out and having fun with friends, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe not and you can have moderation within that too. You know, you don't have to go out and get wasted. I don't drink personally, so that makes that a
Love
lot
that.
easier.
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
But this is such an interesting
weeks
time.
sober.
It's 4th of July weekend,
Yeah.
right? We probably have lots of friends and family and people we know that are out doing that. And like, it's hard. Like when in your journey did you decide to cut drinking, or did you just never drink?
I decided to cut really after, like, once I started my fitness journey, I was like, that's kind of when I started to tune into what made my body feel good and what didn't. And drinking obviously never really makes your body feel that good. So
No.
it was one of the
Sorry,
first.
how old were you?
So I was pretty young. I was, maybe it's a little embarrassing to
No.
state, but I kind of went through a phase where I was a pretty heavy drinker as a teenager. And I wasn't super focused on fitness at that point. And then right into my early 20s, I started to get into fitness, and I was like, you know, continuing to drink like this just doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make me feel good the day after. It doesn't make me want to make good decisions. It doesn't really, like, it's not conducive to what I'm trying to do with myself long term
Yeah.
and to where I want to be long term. So I cut it pretty early, but it was a pretty easy decision for me because I'm also the kind of person that's like, I either I'm getting wasted or I'm not drinking. So it was like, I
Yeah.
don't want to go out and get
Extreme.
wasted. Yeah,
This way or that way?
exactly. I was like, I don't want to go out and get wasted, so I'm just going to not drink. And it's also a lot easier, like, from a social aspect to tell people, no, I don't drink. Because then people, eventually they don't, like, try to push you into it. They're just like, oh, Kiana doesn't drink, so, like, we're going to go out and Kiana's not going to drink. Whereas if I'm like, you know what, I don't want to drink tonight, people are like, oh, come on, just this once, like, just this one more time. And there's always that one more time and that one more event and that one more night. So if you just say, you know, I don't do that, I find it's a lot easier to gain respect from people for that.
That's nice. That's good advice.
So in your early 20s, like 2021, you stopped drinking. And now you're, what, 25, 26?
Yeah,
Or
25.
25. So in your 20s, so what about the kids who hear, like, oh, you gotta have fun in your 20s. This is time to
Yeah.
go have fun.
That's like our
that's
culture, like,
Yeah.
almost pushes it on you.
So what? Like, that sounds ridiculous. What would you say to them? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
they just turned 21. You have to go out and live a little. This is the time to enjoy your life.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Do it in your 30s?
Yeah.
So,
So I, first of all, like, when I first started, I would have a night here and there, like on a special occasion where I'd be like, okay, I'm okay to drink tonight, you know, go out dancing. But I would make sure it was reserved to special occasions so that it wasn't just my default every single weekend. And really making it a special occasion, you know, like my birthday or like a holiday, not just like, oh, my best friend's sister is getting married, you know, because there's something like that every single weekend. But trying to reserve it for special occasions. And then eventually I got to the point where I was just like, even on special occasions, like, this doesn't really make me feel that good. And I think this is really, really important to realize is that I started to train myself to understand that, like, having fun in life doesn't have to mean drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
You don't have to be wasted to have a good time. You don't have to drink or even overeat to enjoy the company around you, to observe what's your surroundings, you know, to be present, to fully enjoy the extent of what's right in front of you. You don't have to be wasted. You know, that doesn't have to be a part of life. And I found that I was actually more able to have a good time once I started to really adopt that philosophy, and kind of not every single outing was focused around how fucked up can I get. You
Yeah.
know, it was actually, okay, who do I want to spend time with? What do I want to do? Why is this exciting? Why is this fun? Let's go do this thing. Let's go experience this thing. And that's kind of how I got into, like, traveling and living life more, is because you're not held back by, you know, always just wanting to sit around and find drugs or find alcohol or things like that. It's really about the experience and the energy and the people that you're surrounded by.
Yes.
and this is awesome. And just to give you chumps an idea, so I'm 37. I pissed away my 20s drinking and doing enough drugs to kill 2 men and a horse. And which is why I'm sitting here learning, admiring, and talking to a 25-year-old, and this is just my opinion and what I believe, who has a more successful career in business than mine. Now, there's no comparison. Everybody has their own lives and this and that. But you can make, like, I mean, how are the last 5 years been? Have you had fun? You've had amazing experiences. I just see
Yeah.
you traveling all the time.
Yeah.
You have a smile on your face. By no means you look unhappy,
No.
right? And if anything, you have way more experiences than what I have had in my 20s, because my whole goal was just to go and drink and do drugs and this and that. And at 35, 37, I'm realizing how bad of an impact it will make on you. So my message is like, just based on this, start realizing this right now and be more productive. There's like way more joy in life than just pissing away your time, because in all honesty, what are you actually doing when you're drinking? You're doing stuff that you don't enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I don't
looking
need to
back
drink.
on your 20s that you quote unquote pissed away with drugs and alcohol. Like what experiences do you take out of that you're like, wow, that was a really cool experience, a really valuable thing?
Nothing.
On the partying,
Yeah.
so there've been these events that I was like, had a great time, you know, like I've gone to like a dubstep show on mushrooms, ecstasy, and acid at the same time, and it was like, wow, it was amazing. Now there are certain isolated events, and there's drugs, and there's sex, and this and that, blah blah blah, those experiences. Now it might sound weird, but I'm getting the same joy right now.
Yeah.
Like when I came over here at 7 in the morning, right? And two of my clients were there, and we had the most magical experience ever. They squatted more than they've ever squatted. They were happy. I'm with a 22-year-old and a 25-year-old who woke up at 6 in the morning to come to the gym on a 4th of July Sunday. That is badass. How many women in San Diego are doing that right now? That's amazing. They spotted me. They cheered me on. We had an amazing conversation. And to people who haven't done that, dude, I've done all the drugs and I've had all the sex. And I will go back in time and I'll give it all up. Just for that experience. They're like, oh, you wouldn't be saying that if you hadn't done it. Dude, literally, I've never tried heroin either. And I don't need to. I don't need to. I'm like, oh yeah, but you gotta, dude. Those things add nothing to your lives. In my 20s, like my father didn't give me a direction. It's nothing. He was a great father, but I didn't have any example of how to live my life. I just came to the US. I saw what everybody was doing. People who had more money and more success and around more females than I'm like, all right, this is the route I'm gonna take. It leads to misery and sadness.
Yeah.
I think especially when you take it on the extreme. I mean, I won't sit here and lie to you guys. Like, I do drugs here and there. I do enjoy myself here and there, but it's not the center focus of my life. I don't think I need it to have fun. And it's not like if I'm going to an event or a concert or a show. I love music festivals. I love music. It's a huge part of who I am. But when I go like, oh, that show looks fun, the first thought that pops into my mind isn't what am I going to do? You know, how am I going to get fucked up at this show? It's I want to go experience this. I want to go hear the music. I want to go feel the energy. It's not about drugs. It's not about alcohol. And so I think anything in moderation can be okay. Even drinking, you know, there are studies that show that some moderate consumption of, you know, a couple glasses of wine here and there is actually good for your health. There are studies that show that, like, you can have a couple drinks and as long as you're staying within your calorie intake, it's not going to negatively impact your hormonal profile or your body fat percentage. But it's all about context, you know, so you can't go out and expect to just get hammered every single Friday night and have that not have negative repercussions on your fitness goals.
Yeah.
And how many people who just start drinking in their early 20s are actually having a couple of drinks, you know?
And that's the important thing to realize is, like, it's not an all or nothing thing. And it's that, yeah, not taking drugs and alcohol to the extreme, I think, is pretty hard. So it's like, are you a person that's able to exercise that discipline and that moderation? Because moderation in all things is actually much harder than extremes. So saying I'm not going to do this or I'm going to go all in, those are both easier options than saying I'm going to be moderate about this, take a moderate approach. So if you're someone who's able to really practice the quote unquote moderate approach, it can be an okay thing to mix in with your fitness goals, and it's not going to be detrimental to you long term. But it's really understanding what moderation means and how you're going to exercise that and use that.
Yeah, because it can be a slippery slope.
It is.
Yeah, I was the same as Mo. I drank through all of my 20s, and it got to a point, and like I'm thinking about what you're saying about how, like, what you asked him, like, what did you enjoy? Like, what I was enjoying at that time was the story. Like, I would do stupid things, and it would be funny the next day to laugh about with your friends, you know? But then it got to this point where, like, that was giving me horrible anxiety. I would start to feel really embarrassed about, even if it the most simplest thing the next day, I'd be very embarrassed about what I had done the night before. And just eliminating that from my life was the only way I could stop that anxiety. It was like a switch happened. It took over me, and I just had to stop drinking just completely. Yeah. I don't have the power to be a moderate drinker. I know that about myself, and that's fine. So I've just had to completely get rid of it.
And I think that's a good thing to realize. And it's also important to realize that, like you're saying, like, it was fun at first, but then once you do it too much, again, we're keying in, extremes here. Yeah. Then it starts to become not fun anymore, because it's just, you did this last weekend. You did this the weekend before.
And the fun isn't worth the pain. For me too, like, drinking is a depressant. Like, it would really mess with my mental health for like a whole week after like a binge drinking session or something. It would take me a long time to like kind of get in the right frame of mind again. And I just can't afford to lose that much time on that type of stuff anymore. It's not, the fun does not outweigh the pain. So it's just like,
and
wipe it out.
There's a different level of pain between going out and, getting hammered and wasted versus getting a little tipsy with some friends, having some appetizers. Those are two totally different things. And like I said, if you're able to exercise moderation, you can still live your life outside of fitness. You can still have a couple drinks here and there. You can still maybe go to a dubstep show and do drugs every once in a while, and it's going to be okay. But if you start to have that be your default, that's when we really come to a problem. And I think that more often than not, you either do it or you don't. You're all in, or you don't do it at all. Yeah. And I think that, it's just important to realize that, and important to catch yourself if you're going too far in the do it direction.
Yeah. Do you want to ask her something? Because now I'm going to go towards a whole different route.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, just to recap, like, this is amazing, everything that you said. So, for the viewers, my strength and conditioning program that I'm very, 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 very proud of, and I personally call it the number one on the planet, and I believe in it. And it all started with me going to a seminar that she did. And I went over there being very skeptical and all that stuff, but that one of the biggest things that I learned was how to apply mechanical tension and all that stuff. Like, I was so skeptical, and I really want to thank you. It still boggles my mind. I don't know what thought process you took, because, like, I look at you, you're busy. You don't really come to the gym and mess around, aren't chit-chatty and all that stuff. You're not going around like flirting with a bunch of dudes. You're dialed in. You're at your job.
So super focused.
So whenever I approach you, I want to make sure that I'm like not taking too much of your time. And you took hours, like more than an hour of your time, to go through this with me. And all that stuff that I learned from the hour-long seminar that I did with you, and multiple conversations I had from you, helped me develop this training methodology. And so I want to let people know. I mean, I'm still learning in this game, but I look at you as someone who has their shit dialed in. So if you're looking for a personal trainer, I know you don't take a lot of one-on-ones, but and the reason why I'm in this fitness industry is because there's a bunch of garbage. The entire fitness industry, I think it's designed, it's an industry. Call salesmen are scumbags. They're going to try to rip you off. Real estate agents don't. An industry is basically designed to make money. So it feeds off our insecurities and lack of knowledge to sell us BS that you don't need. At the end of the day, a personal trainer is just trying to get, like, well, not all of them, but they're going to try to get as much money out of your pocket. And Kiana is one of the people that I respect, admire, and I will guarantee you, no matter what you do with her, whether online or in person, you're going to be in good hands.
Oh, thank you.
And so I want to ask you why you started to work out. Why did you start to begin with?
Yeah, so I actually hated sports growing up. I did volleyball for a number of years. That was the only thing that ever really stuck. And then once I got into high school, it was kind of like you have a life or you get super dedicated to volleyball. And so it's like, I don't really need to do volleyball. Like, I'm not by nature, I'm not a person who's very competitive against other people. I'm like, you want to bite my head off? All right, like, you can have it. Like, I don't care. I don't care that much, you know? And so sports were really hard for me in that sense, especially on, like, the high school and collegiate level, because I just didn't have that drive to be competitive in that way. So I hated sports. I hated running. I hated everything. And over time, you know, in high school, I went through some rough patches. I think everyone kind of does at some point in high school, but I went through some rough family stuff, some rough social things, and I developed an eating disorder. And I struggled with that for, you know, years. And I developed habits of excessive exercise, mostly cardio-based, just, you know, trying to be the smallest and the skinniest version of myself. And then eventually I started to kind of venture into more of these, like, online programs I was finding where, like, people were lifting weights. And I was like, well, what is this? And so I started, I had a, like, family membership at my local YMCA. So I started to just go there after school on my own time and kind of play around with weights and things like that. And I started to become, exercise kind of from there took on a new meaning for me, because I was starting to realize every time I went to the gym, like, whoa, this week I can lift more than I did last week. Like, realizing that I was actually making some sort of physical progress instead of just kind of running on a hamster wheel, essentially, like going for a run. It's just like beating yourself to the ground and then you get up and do it again, and there's never really any visible or tangible progress that you're making. Whereas, like, with lifting weights, I was like, wow, I'm getting stronger, like, this feels good. I, like, got up and I was like, I'm kind of sore the next day, you know. I was like, I kind of like this. And so that's kind of how I started getting into lifting weights. And from there, I won't say it was a straight up trajectory, you know. I just recovered and everything was amazing, but that is kind of what led me on the path to realizing that being the smallest, skinniest version of myself was not equivalent to being the best version of myself, or to being the healthiest, or even the fittest, or the happiest version of myself. And that I started to kind of really adopt that more and more with weight training in the gym over the years. And it was something that was a unique fitness experience to me, in the sense that I didn't have to compete with anyone. You know, it was me against me. It was me going in trying to be better than myself every single day. And that was kind of unique to any other sport I'd ever done. It was something I could do on my own time. I could just kind of hone in, put on my headphones, drown out the rest of the world. I didn't have to talk to anyone else. I didn't have to focus on anyone else. It was about me and my personal progression. And I kind of fell in love with that and just morphed from there.
Wow.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Yes,
Ooh,
it is.
So, to summarize this, that was beautiful. That was awesome. You wanted to improve your life. You were going through some personal stuff or whatever. There's some negativities, and you decide to become a better, stronger, more confident version of yourself. And started focusing on something positive, finding something that's more hobby-like and that you enjoy, and you're going to improve yourself, that get bigger, stronger, faster, more confident. I'm not saying you're not confident. You are confident, and we can always get better. So kind of sort of that's the approach you took, like self-improvement.
Yeah, so I think lifting weights in general, and just fitness in general, helped me develop self-confidence. Like, I never really had I wasn't, like, horribly inconfident growing up, but I didn't have a huge self-confidence. And I think that one of the skills you develop in the gym is realizing that, like, a a quote that always comes to mind for myself that I just kind of keyed for myself is actually, I fucking can. You know, when you're in the gym lifting a weight that feels really heavy that you've never done before, everything in your mind is screaming, you can't do this. Like, what are you doing? Give up. Just tell yourself, actually, I fucking can. And more often than not, you will be able to. And that carries over into life too, you know, like you go through difficult situations, you go through something where you're like, I shouldn't have to deal with this. Like I don't know what to do in this scenario. I can't figure this out. Just tell yourself, actually, I fucking can. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put myself through this, and I'm gonna do well. I'm gonna make it. Mm-hmm. And I think that is one of the most valuable lessons I've learned out of fitness, and it has truly carried over into every area of my life. And I think it's one of the things that's allowed me to be successful in other areas in my life too. Is like you don't always go into something knowing that you're going to be great or that it's going to be fine or that everything's going to work out. You don't always have a super direct path, but you run into troubles, you run into trials, tribulations, and you tell yourself, I'm going to figure this out. Yep. And 90% of the time, actually, you know, to this point in my life, 100% of the time, it's worked out. Maybe it's not always the way I thought it was going to work out on the first try. Maybe, you know, you have to go to a plan B sometimes, but it's always worked out and I'm still here. So
yeah, that's self-belief. Mm-hmm. There was something else I wanted to ask you when you're talking about when you were going through your hard times in high school and you're doing a lot of cardio and you had like a vision of wanting to be the smallest, you know, tiniest vision of yourself. And then you started lifting weights. And I'm sure like your body changed quite a bit. How did you change your mind to understand that skinny, tiny, you know, frame was not actually what was beautiful, but this now more muscular, strong shape? How did you get there?
So the first thing that comes to mind is like this Pinterest board that I had. Like it was like a fitness Pinterest board. This was back when Pinterest was really interesting to people still. And I had all these photos of like physiques that I really admired and that I like wanted to look like. And looking over that board, it was like none of these women were like rail thin. They were all, you know, toned and shapely and muscular. And I started to realize like all these women are strong, you know, they lift weights, and that's like, I want that shape. I want to look like that. And I'm not going to build that shape just by, you know, dieting myself away. Mm-hmm. You know, if I want to create an actual shape for myself, I have to be doing something different. And so I started to kind of force that thought into my mind. And it was really hard at first because there's the competing thought that, oh no, you have to be leaner, you have to be more shredded, you have to be thinner. So like, don't eat as much, don't push as much weight. So I had to always challenge that thought and be like, okay, what do you really want in the long term? Mm-hmm. You have to eat this food in order to get there. You have to fuel yourself in this way in order to get there. You have to push yourself in the gym in order to get there. And so it was kind of like challenging myself mentally over time to challenge my own beliefs and my own thought process. And like I said before, just stay in my own lane, you know, stay focused on myself and my own goals and not worry about this other person who's skinnier, this other person who's leaner, this other person who eats this diet and they look great. It was not about that. It was about me. Mm-hmm. And so it was a lot of like competing interests in my own mind, but I knew what I wanted in the long term, and I knew the voice that I had to strengthen and the voice that I had to weaken in order to get there.
I love that. The voice you strengthen and the voice you weaken, because there is always that little voice, and you know, we're just constantly, things are thrown at us like, you should look like this, you should wear your hair like this, you should, you know, be this weight, like a scale matters or something. But I like that. The voice is in our heads.
Yeah. And I think that that was a really important thing to realize over the course of my life as well, is like, what voice do you want to strengthen and what voice do you want to weaken? Because like you said, like there's always an external influence on how you think you should be, what you think you should look like. And I think a lot of the person that I've developed into is because of those early stages of learning to strengthen the voice of what I really want for myself and weaken the voice of what everyone else thinks I should be. Like I come in here, I dress different than all the other trainers. I train different than all the other trainers. I don't give a fuck. This is who I want to be. I don't care.
I love your outfits, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
like that you're unique and different. Nobody wants to see the same things over and over again.
Right,
Like,
and
you're an individual.
My fanny pack's better, though.
Debatable. But you convince yourself at some point that you do want to be the same thing as everyone else. And then you stop and you think about it and you're like, wait, no, I don't. I want to celebrate the fact that I don't. I want to be, I want to be a little funky. I want to wear a bucket hat. I want to wear the fuzzy socks, And doing that makes you feel so much better. And like being in your own skin, it doesn't have to be those things specifically. Maybe you're like, she looks whack. I don't really want to do that. And that's fine. But understanding what you really want for yourself versus what how you're allowing external influences to interfere with your life.
So real quick about the physique, I do want to point something out real quick, and I know we're going to wrap it up in a second. Thank you for your time.
Sorry, I'm a talker, I know.
No, I love it.
I love
we can sit here all day. I'm more
Yeah.
out of respect for your time. I know you have stuff to do too. But that I want to point this out, that the physique, now that you switch your mindset to looking at that bigger, stronger, muscular physique, that physique is healthier than that one that's the person who's just trying to get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. Long term, that bigger, muscular physique is actually healthier. Now, people are going to see you. They're going to see your profile, what you look like. How much do you weigh?
So right now I'm around 115 pounds. I lost a bit of weight when I moved to Mexico because I was walking so much. And so I'm like working my way back up a little bit right now. And I'm 6 weeks out from another WBFF show, my pro debut.
Nice.
And my goal in that show is actually to come in a little bit fuller and a little bit heavier because, especially the bikini division in WBFF, they value a healthy, full but fit kind of look, which is what I've always kind of strived for, which is why I initially was never super interested in bodybuilding, because I wasn't interested in that super shredded, like just emaciated physique. So the WBFF has allowed me a platform to kind of challenge myself to go after what I was talking about earlier. What is my actual goal versus what other people think I should look like? So this federation kind of aligns more with what my personal goals are as well. So going into this show right now, my goal is to actually come in a little bit fuller, maybe around this weight, maybe a little bit heavier, but really just dial in on my training, eating a lot of whole foods so I feel good, my sleep, my recovery, and that is what's going to help me look my best regardless of my weight.
Okay. And how tall are you?
5'4".
So you're 5'4", and when you're lean, depleted, dialed in, something that that is not healthy to do year round, you're gonna weigh about 115.
Probably a little less.
All right.
Yeah.
And what's your year round when you're just chilling and you're maintaining a healthy lifestyle? What do you kind of sit around?
So that's right around 115 to 117. Little more depleted is closer to like the 112 range.
And for females who are looking at that number, she is paper thin. way, 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 way leaner than I've ever have been. And so there's absolutely no body fat there. So that's around 115. And how many calories are you eating a day?
I average between 22 and 2,500 calories.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. So we talked
mind's
about
blown.
this. So when you're only focused on dropping weight and getting skinny, I gave an example of a Prius and then a Ram TRX that has 700 horsepower in there, right? So this is a Ram TRX. It's a gas guzzler. You have a big engine, big legs, big glutes, big muscles that move big weights. Her metabolism is higher, AGH levels are firing, test is higher, estrogen is lowered. So all that stuff she's burning through calories, right? 2,200. So when you're just focusing on eating less, doing more cardio, dropping weights, by the time you actually look close to what you want to look like, you drop your metabolism so low that 1,600 calories will blow you up. Now, you can go from a Prius that can go long distances with no power on a little bit of gas. That means you have a slow metabolism. You can always turn that into this thing. And that's going to come from proper nutrition, adding muscle, not overtraining and stuff like that. Is that, can you make that sound a little pretty?
Yeah. Yeah, so actually, kind of what you're referring to is metabolic adoption. And a lot of people also refer to it as metabolic damage, which it isn't really a term that I like to use because your metabolism isn't being damaged. It's actually a really normal thing for your body for your metabolism to adjust when you're in a calorie deficit. So the longer and deeper of a calorie deficit that you're in, the more that your metabolism adjusts and down regulates to burn less calories on a daily basis just to maintain your weight. So the longer that you try to push yourself into that and the more extreme you try to make that, the more your metabolism is going to adapt to that. If you allow yourself periods of time where you're not in a calorie deficit, you're at maintenance, or you're even in a slight surplus, your metabolism isn't down regulating, and sometimes it can even upregulate. In the case of like a reverse diet, that would be the goal, and your metabolism, like your body starts to burn calories better. I would say more efficiently, but technically, scientifically, that's not the right term because burning calories more efficiently would mean you're reserving more calories. But anyways, your body starts to upregulate, your metabolism starts to upregulate when you are at maintenance or you're not in a deficit for a long period of time because it realizes, okay, I'm getting enough fuel, I can move around more, I can push more weight, I can exert more energy, and I'm going to be okay. So if the longer that you spend not in a calorie deficit, the better we're going to be metabolically. And I've never allowed myself to get to a point where I'm metabolically like the lowest my calories I've ever gotten on a prep was like 1,800. And that was because, and I didn't go lower than that because I started to lose my period and I was not okay with that from a health standpoint. And so even though I wasn't as lean as I wanted to be at that point because I was trying to go to extremes, I was like, you know what? It's not worth it in the end for me to lose my period for 6 months and then spend potentially 2 to 3 years trying to get my health and my hormonal profile back.
Wow.
So just in not allowing my calories to go super low for an extended period of time, I have been able, I think, to maintain a lot higher metabolic rate than many of like same weight, same size counterparts.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Wow. So basically, like, if you're, let's say, I don't like using the word overweight because what's overweight?
Right.
If you're carrying more body fat than you want, that means your metabolism is lower than it needs to be, right? So the first thing you're going to do is eat less food and do more calories. That metabolism is going to go further down. You're more like, if you drop a few pounds of weight by doing a calorie deficit and your metabolism is actually lower, now your body is more prone to gaining that body fat back. So we had some technical issues. Jordan's gone. So, all right. So the question I was asking is that we went over how you're able to maintain a higher metabolism, be able to eat 2,200 calories to maintain, which is pretty healthy. So when a person is starting a fitness program and they are carrying a little bit more body fat than they want, most of the time they go into a pretty big calorie deficit, and if their metabolism is already low, which is why they're carrying more body fat than they need, it can go down further. So what approach would you recommend to somebody who's trying to raise their metabolism and drop body fat at the same time, and after dropping a bunch of weight or body fat, they want to be at a higher metabolism so they can eat the way you do, like stay satiated and have a healthy amount of calories?
Okay, so the first thing that I'll tackle is exercise with that approach. So a lot of people overvalue cardio because of the number of calories that you can burn per unit of time. But when you're interested in like long-term maintenance and preserving your metabolism, strength training is by far and above the most efficient and effective form of exercise for sustained fat loss. So that's the first thing you want to tackle, is making sure you have a smart, sensible strength training routine set up, and that is the primary basis of your exercise. Like, your exercise routine is based around strength training, not based around cardio. Now, in terms of intake, you do want to make sure that you're in a deficit if your goal is to lose weight. But the extent of that deficit is going to help determine how much your metabolism adapts to that. So when you enforce a deficit that's larger than necessary, your metabolism is going to downregulate more than might be necessary in order for you to see fat loss, which is not ideal. So my personal approach and my recommendation for a lot of people is to decrease calories the least amount possible for you to see results, while still maintaining like a sensible lifestyle. So if you can decrease calories less and still see results, that is ideal. You don't want to just decrease calories as much as possible with the mindset that that will get you the fastest or best results possible, because really what that's going to do is you're going to see a lot of progress really fast, and then you're going to plateau really fast, and your metabolism is going to downregulate really fast. So then you're going to end up in a position where you haven't lost as much weight as you want to, but you're consuming less calories than you want to be. And so in order to continue losing weight, you need to continue dropping calories, but your calories are already really low. So if you start out with smaller decreases, you can have your calories stay a little bit higher, you can drop a little bit of weight, and then once you plateau, you have a little bit more wiggle room to either continue dropping calories, continue adapting exercise, or you will just continue seeing that scale drop for a longer period of time than if you were to drop a lot of calories really quickly.
Oh, nice. Awesome. So just to go over what you said, definitely focus on a strength training program rather than cardio, and start by and the approach you should take is you need to you should drop the bare minimum calories needed to start experiencing a fat loss.
Yes.
Otherwise your metabolism will crash too much.
Yes, your metabolism will adapt more than is necessary.
More than is necessary. So to if somebody wanted to make things a little bit more simpler, let's say they're not starting a workout regimen they're not doing following a workout regimen at all, and let's start with the assumption that they're eating the same calories and they're maintaining a high level of body fat on their body, and that should stay constant, right? If you don't change the calories,
yes,
and the lifestyle. So now they start a strength and conditioning program. So would it be a good idea not to change the calories just to see if your fat starts dropping, because you're creating a calorie deficit with that training regimen already?
That could be one approach, and then you could just see how your body responds to that after a few weeks. You could combine beginning a strength training regimen with a very small drop in calories just to kind of elevate the calorie deficit that you're in. But as you if you were going from like ground zero, no exercise, and then start a strength training routine, and then don't change your diet at all, that alone will put you in a calorie deficit. So you might not need to adjust nutrition too much at that point, but you will probably see a little bit quicker results if you change your caloric intake by a little bit, like maybe 100 calories a day, because strength training actually doesn't burn that many calories like per unit of time. So you're not going to put yourself in that much of a deficit, but you are just going to be changing your body composition. So you will look better, you will be losing more body fat, but you might not necessarily see that scale dropping very quickly. It will still be dropping because you'll still be in a small deficit, but you might see better results if you also were in if you took your calories down very slightly in combination with that strength training. Again, just making sure to not like hit the gas pedal too hard in either direction there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That really clarifies things. So, again, so strength training should be the main focus. Also, dropping a little bit of calories will increase that. And how much cardio would you add when we're talking about volume and days? Like, if you're training 2 days a week, 4 days a week, much of that should be cardio based and strength training based?
So that's really going to depend on the individual and like their rate of progress, right? So if you're someone who's very sedentary on a daily basis, like you're maybe getting 3,000 steps a day and you sit at a desk all day, I would say add just a step goal, just try to be moving around a little bit more throughout the day. It doesn't have to be regimented cardio, and it can actually be more beneficial if it's not, because then you're figuring out ways within your life to implement more activity without it feeling like regimented cardio. So it's actually easier to sustain that way. If you're someone who's already doing a really high volume of cardio, you're already doing a lot of activity on a daily basis, then you probably don't have a lot of wiggle room to increase your cardio that much more. So that would be where you might look at you will turn to your nutrition first and foremost. But if that's already taken care of, you're already at a relatively low calorie intake that you're consistent with, then that's when you would start looking towards like methods of reverse dieting and things like that, which is kind of beyond the scope of this podcast. And then if you're just like kind of somewhere in the middle, like you get an average amount of activity, I would just, again, look at increasing your daily step intake so that it's something that's maintainable and sustainable and doesn't interfere too much with the rest of your life or with your strength training protocol.
So to make this a little bit more practical, that'll help me out too. So let's say I have somebody who has an office job once versus somebody who works at a restaurant 5 days a week, right? So can I get away with doing absolutely no cardio with this one person who's on their feet 8 hours a day, or let's say 6-7 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week? Or should we have to add a little bit more cardio there too?
For sure, you could get away with doing no cardio if you're manipulating other variables as well, like nutrition, strength training, things like that. At a certain point, you might want to add like a little bit of cardio. Again, you could just say, let's increase your daily step intake by 2,000. Because that, a lot of times what happens with people that they don't realize when you add cardio into their daily regimen is it makes them more tired. It makes them more hungry. So it actually makes them move around less throughout the rest of the day if they're doing like a 20-30 minute cardio session every day. So they end up burning less calories throughout the day. So the cardio ends up being a wash. So that's why I like the step goal approach, because we kind of avoid that. We make sure that your daily activity is actually increasing, whether or not we're adding cardio, like regimented cardio or not. And then cardio also does have, like, doing too much activity is not a good thing either. Just like dieting too quickly is not a good thing. So your metabolism will adapt to that cardio you do. So you have to do more over time to continue losing weight. So that's something to consider as well, because if you have someone who already has a really high daily activity, continuing to increase that probably isn't going to be very sustainable.
Okay, so a big chunk of what I'm getting from there is you're very, very specific with counting all that. So like when I make a generalized statement about, oh, this person is just walking this much on 6-7 hour shifts 4 or 5 days a week, but you're talking about, you're specifically counting how many steps they're doing and then how much to add on top or take away.
Yeah, because they're probably pretty consistent, like somewhere within like 2,000 steps of the same thing on a daily basis. So if you just say, okay, we're going to increase that by another 2,000 steps, that's easily, depending on the size of the person, 100 to 200 extra calories a day, which is enough of a deficit to induce a change. So,
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, that actually can be a wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming here twice and making time. I'm sure all of this will mesh well. And I also wanted to say that's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to bring you on this podcast was that your page sends a very positive, healthy message that I want to promote as well. From your page, I mean, obviously, you're competitive, you look amazing, you track all your stuff. It's about aesthetics too. Well, a lot of it is, but you're promoting mostly health, longevity, mental health, and instead of just showing, oh, look at my physique, look at my physique, look at my physique, it's more of like information that will help people actually maintain this journey and progress.
yes, thank you.
So, all right, that should be a wrap. And would you like to share your Instagram? I really, really want people to follow you because there's a lot of detailed scientific information there. I'm still learning and growing big chunk of my program. The information that I use comes from you, our conversations we had, and the seminar that you did over here. So your Instagram?
Oh, thank you
Yes,
so much.
please.
My handle on Instagram is at Nirvana Fit. It's all one word, all lowercase. It's Kiana Nirvana Loomis is the name on there.
All right. And so I only take groups, and my knowledge is limited compared to her, but I'm doing a great job. But if you want someone who is 100% dialed in, specific for one-on-one training, I 150% recommend her. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Mo.
All right. Happy Sunday.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.